All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks again for consistently making it to these calls. And thanks to the staff and board of directors for your continued work to make these calls possible. It's hard to believe that it's been 102 days since the suspension of soccer, and we're really pleased that tonight we'll be talking about getting back on the pitch. I want to congratulate all the members that have completed their local plans and received low or very low scores on the risk assessment. This speaks volumes to the preparations you've made and the commitments to offer safe programming. Just yesterday, phase 4.1 of the Re-Open Saskatchewan Plan began, and this afternoon received additional information, which we'll be talking about tonight. Government announcements often provide more opportunity, but also raise more questions that need to be answered. And of course, this is the case for today. So we ask for your patience as we sort through this, these details that were announced today. Tonight, we invite your active participation, as always. We encourage you to bring up any scenarios and questions you may have about returning to the pitch. Remember, we don't want anybody to make decisions or assumptions, so ask your burning questions and so that we all can learn from each other. As a final note, we must continue to undertake all necessary steps to ensure the safety of our participants and our communities. Even though the government has again reduced restrictions, we encourage all member organizations to take their time as they return to the pitch. Every program is unique, therefore each organization should only return to soccer when they are prepared. It's okay to take one step at a time. Once again, thank you for consistently continue to join us on these calls. And with that, I'll turn it over to Doug, who will take us through our agenda for tonight.
Thank you, Lisa. So as usual, let's just go through some logistics here. And of course, people have been excellent on the calls. Use the mute button to keep yourself quiet if you can. And if you have any questions, please use the chat function. If you wish to be recognized by the chair, raise your hand and we'll unmute and we'll talk through it and then mute after that. So Raheem, if you can go to the next slide, please. So, so for tonight, Eden is going to get us started. We're going to talk through some registration through RAMP. We're going to acknowledge the members that have completed the assessment tool. We're going to do our best to do the update on the Re-Open Sask details, which again, we just got about 3:30 this afternoon. And we have some other interesting news coming from Canada Soccer, which we'll share. And obviously we'll look at what that means for the return to soccer plan. And I can tell you that within the guidelines from the provincial government, there is once again some contradictions. We'll be on a call first thing in the morning again with SAS Sport. And they had similar concerns. I talked to them about 4:30 this afternoon. So we will try to get answers for some of these questions, and we'd love to hear what those questions are from you folks as the call proceeds tonight. And Raheem will also do an update on Club Nationals, which again, that's the item that came from Canada Soccer about the same time this afternoon as we're getting updates from the government. So it's been a busy afternoon, and in fact, we had to entirely redo our presentation tonight, so I want to thank the staff for hustling in a short time period to get this ready. And with that, I will turn it over to Eden to walk us through some of the registration logistics that we need to be aware of. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to go through a couple of slides here regarding both the outdoor registration and the indoor registration. After the 3 slides, I will take over the screen sharing and I'll actually walk you through some of the RAMP systems so you can see how these features work. And then at the end, I will review the chat box to see if there's any questions in there and open up questions for about 5 minutes to go through it and show you where you can get some further assistance if required once we're wrapping up on the registration. So for the first slide here, outdoor registration, in the previous communications, you would have seen we attached 3 PDFs that were our Declaration of Compliance, our Youth and Adult Release of Liability waivers. These waivers are already installed in your RAMP systems for the outdoor registration. Now, it is a big recommendation if you actually take these waivers and put them not only on your website, but also any communications regarding registration coming up. That way, you're going to give individuals enough time to read them before they register so they completely understand what they're signing off on. And anywhere else you can post them, these PDFs are there for you to print off and use and post. They're not there for you to use for people to sign off on, because all of that will be done through the online registration. Now, for everyone that's going to be offering new programs this coming up July or August, you would want to create new packages for any of you that are thinking in a goal line form, that's programs, but in RAMP, of course, it's called packages. And you'd want to do that for any of your participants or staff or officials that you're receiving registrations for coming up. So I do not recommend you deleting any of the packages you had from March or February when you opened up initially of your outdoor registration. I would just suggest creating new ones. And I'll go into more detail about that right away when I share the screen. There's this feature as well called merge registration. It's going to be a handy feature for you to use to actually bring all of the information that you've had from past packages to new packages together into one area. I'll go through that a little bit more, but there's a YouTube link that will be available if you want to watch the training on how to use the merge registration feature. And in the communication that you would have got last week as well, the updated RAMP waiver feature, this is going to be used for any people that aren't registering for new packages in this upcoming outdoor season. So if you're keeping any previous registrations or previous packages that you had, but you need to have them update the waivers that they signed, the new RAMP waiver feature will actually send emails to prompt those individuals to sign off on the declaration of compliance and the waiver forms. There's also a way for you to track to see who has filled it out, and there's different ways for you to send out the communication as well to prompt them to sign them off. Next slide, please. So new to this season, with the COVID pandemic, we've seen a little bit difference in our registrations, and of course the high importance of making sure everyone who's on the field is registered. So with that, we've created the support participant registration. This registration will be for any individual that's helping a mini-type player on the field. So you're looking U9 and under. If they're on there to help participate for that session, they're going to be on the field actively being the support person for that child. That registration is going to be completed through the RAMP executive registration, which I'll go into, and it'll be under the position title of support participant. Please note there is no registration fee for these individuals, but they are required to be registered through the system. Next slide. So indoor registration. Indoor participant registration will open Thursday, June 25th. This is important to note that this will only be for players. Our team personnel registration is going to be opening up later in the summer. We're currently developing a Respect in Sport tie-in that requires additional testing. So at this time, it will only be participant registration that will be opened up on the 25th. A thing that will be different than other registrations is if you have seen the registration system and you've signed up for something, you'll note that one of the first questions you get asked is what season you're signing up for, and you have to select Outdoor 2020. Once you activate your indoor season, there will be two options. It will say Outdoor 2020 and Indoor 2021. You'll want to educate your participants to make sure that they're registering for the right season. It does clearly state it, but it wouldn't hurt to just remind them to make sure that they double check. There is no default season, so it will just be blank. They'll actually have to open up the drop down to pick which season they are registering for. So there is a thought process in it. It won't just default to one season or the other. Another thing to note that even though I will be pushing down the season, it won't be public until you have activated your indoor season. And for participant registration, it's not available until you set up packages for participants to register to. So that's just a couple of things to remember from before when you're setting up your outdoor season. It's not public until you activate it, and registration isn't accessible until you add packages. And just a note, at this time, we don't have any guidelines or dates of when indoor soccer may commence. And of course, we'll update the membership once we do have more information. But this indoor registration will be open for any clubs that are anticipating receiving registrations for indoor, and you'll have the ability to do so on Thursday. So Raheem, now I'm going to take over the screen sharing. Thank you. Perfect. Well, I'm going to assume you can see my slide. Nicole, Doug, or Raheem, could you confirm for me?
Yep.
Thank you. So I'm going to go through the package feature real quick first, and I'm going to use a club that is actually on our call. So Saskatoon United, you are the lucky winners here. I won't be disclosing any information. I'm just going to be going into your administration system. Perfect. So in your packages over here on the left-hand side is where you're going to want to go in to create any of your new packages. I highly suggest deactivating any of your old previous ones just so they don't show up on registration for your new outdoor programs. To deactivate your packages, you can do so by pressing these orange buttons here. That will deactivate your package, or you can go into the edit feature and just individually check it off as well. Both will work to hiding that old package from showing up. Now remember, if you need a refresher on how you create packages or how those work, above each of the categories that you're working in is a YouTube video that walks you through how to do that. I'll also show you the ramp support, and you can contact me if you have any other questions regarding how to create it. So just note, as I was saying before, I highly suggest not deleting any of your old packages. Just archive them or hide them, and don't delete any of your previous registrations. Just create a new package for people to register to. So when I said don't delete previous registrations, I'm going to go through this part really slow, and if there's probably going to be some questions on it, so I have no problem. It took me a bit to completely understand this as well. But there's this feature called the merge feature, which is just underneath the registration tab here. How the ramp system works is if you have two different registrations on one profile, what that means is if you have me as a player registered for outdoor soccer back in March, and now I'm going to register again for outdoor soccer within the same season in July. The system will see you as one registration, but two packages. Now you want to merge those together into the one profile that that person is in. It kind of does that, but to make it even cleaner, and it's very easy to do, right under here in this merge registrations option, under registrations, you can do that by just selecting a button. Oh, I'm just getting some background noise here for a second. There we go. Okay. So if you want to see who has registered back at your previous package registrations and who's registering for your current registrations, and you'd like to merge the two together, you can click on View, which I won't do at this moment because it's going to disclose a whole bunch of player information. But when you click on View, it will allow you to select individuals or select all, and all you have to do is click Merge, and it pushes the two together. Now, do you need to merge the two? No. Is it going to make a huge difference? No. The only thing that's going to make it easier for you is when you're searching under your report feature and you want to see all the registrations you have, it's going to show you every registration. It's not going to show you every individual. So if you only want to see registrations, or sorry, if you only want to see individuals, you'll want to merge all of them together so all the packages and everything get pushed underneath the person. If you want to see all the transactions under one individual, not by each package, you'll want to merge your registrations together, and that way you'll see the transactions underneath that one person, not under their individual packages. Now, for some of you, you might have any idea what I'm talking about. For a lot of the registrars that are on this call, I hope that you're following along with what I'm saying, but if you need additional guidance on what this merge feature does, of course, there's that YouTube video just above here that you can click and watch, and I can help you through some of it. And also today I spoke with ramp support who assisted me with this merge feature because we haven't had to use it yet, but it's very handy and very fast. It's just a click all and merge, and it doesn't change anything but just put all the account information into one. I'm going to close that off. So that's the merge feature. That's when you're going to have your package from before and your package now. Now, if you're using your previous packages that you had created back in earlier in the season, and all you need is for the individuals to update their waivers, you're just going to go and use the missing waiver function. So underneath the registration tab, there's going to be the option called the waiver check. In here, it's going to bring up a list of all the individuals who haven't signed off the waiver. Now, of course, it's going to be everybody, unless you've started opening up some registrations. So your list is going to be rather large. If you want everybody to sign off on it, you just click this orange button here. If you'd like to select specific individuals to sign those waivers, you can select specific individuals and click this green button here. If you just want to register or send it off to one or two people that you select, this mailbox feature on the right-hand side will send an individual email to that person. So you have options. How you need to collect the waivers and the forms, you can do that through them registering for new packages, or you can do that through this feature here if they've already registered for a package in the past, before the new waivers were implemented. Now, if you want to try and track a little bit easier who has completed the waiver and who hasn't, or you want to share that information, underneath the reports here, all the way to the bottom, you'll find an option that's called missing waivers. In here, you can actually run a report, say for specific divisions, to see who has completed the waiver and declaration form. It would be highly recommended that if you do have a list of individuals who haven't completed it, that's shared with whoever the individual is that's supervising or coaching for on-field prior to the event, so they're able to know who is eligible and who's completed everything in order to join that event. Just going to grab a sip here. You can also search by individual here to see if they have if they haven't completed the waiver information. All right, so I'm going to move off of this site now. And we're going to go over to show you how the support participant registration works. Here. We're going to visit another club site, one of our new members. Now, if you have never received executive registrations before, you'll have to go into your seasons and edit your outdoor season to enable executive registration. That's where that support participant registration is found. So it's simply in your season, editing your season, underneath the settings tab, enabling your executive registration. If you do not want to have a package, which a package is not required for support participant registration, on the right hand in the middle here, you can just select off allow executive no package registration. It just makes the flow of the registration a little bit quicker. But if you would like to add a package, say that has some information or anything attached to it so people understand a little bit more what support participant registration is, you can feel free to do so by creating a registration and not having to check off this box. But it is important that you enable your executive registration, because regardless if you have a package created or not for that registration type, it won't show up unless it's checked off. So let's see what that looks like once it's checked off. You have a parent that's going to be helping. They're going to go to your club's registration site. If they don't have an account, they'll create one. If not, they'll just re-sign into their current one. Just going a little too fast for the computer. 1 second. There we go. The executive registration will be active. And here it's going to ask me to choose a season. Right now there's only one. And my position. So support participant will be available for me to register for. I'm going to register as a test participant and then continue the registration. The next step will be signing the waivers, and after that, confirming your registration. Then that individual is registered as a support participant. Perfect. So that's how that looks like in the back when you set up your support participation and when they register. The last thing that I'll show everybody is the indoor season. Now it's going to look a little bit different than what you're used to seeing when you go into your system. I'm just going to scooch out of Caryville here and go into a different club. I will go into our club registration. So once the indoor season is pushed down, you guys will see that you'll have two options. your outdoor season and your indoor season. The indoor season, though, will be in orange as it won't be activated until you activate it. I've been testing out the 2 seasons in our club test site, which is why this one is green, because it's active. So just make sure you go in there and edit it and put any of the information you need for that new season. Once you activate it, it will be showed on the registrations for them to pick from the drop-down. Once you have your packages to the participant registration, it will be available for them to register into. Do you need to have it active right now? No. If you want to just keep it closed for now, you don't even have to go in there and touch it, but it's available for you to go in and edit on the 25th. So feel free to do that after that. But just note that if you're creating any packages, you're going to have to make sure you're in the right season creating packages, and you'll just go into your package and it will ask you which season you want to create a package. Perfect. So I will stop sharing for a moment. Actually, just one second. I want to show you. I'll leave it on this page while I answer questions. I do see that I have a couple of questions in the chat box here. I'm just going to open it up.
I don't think anything for you in there yet, Eden.
Yeah, I got one from Rochelle.
Oh, okay.
Rochelle, I don't control. It will be dropped down to Saskatoon Youth Soccer on the 25th, and if they are going to amend anything for the community associations or have it open or closed, I'm not sure. I just drop it down directly to the member organizations on that date. So it will go down to all of my registration sites that I have that are active. So they'll have access to it. But if I'm not sure what Saskatoon Youth will be doing with indoor registration at this time. You're very welcome. Thank you for the question. Okay, now if anyone wants to raise their hand, I can take any questions in order. All right, if nobody has any, if you need any further assistance, I have the ramp support contact information on the screen here. It's also available on our website. You can send them an email or give them a call. Just note to everybody, if you would like assistance from me this week, I'm going to be in my office until Friday, and then I will be off next week. So for next week, if you can't get a hold of me, please reach out to ramp support. They will be aware that I'm going to be on holidays, and Justin or Caden or Oliver will be happy to assist. Thank you. I will stop sharing now.
Eden. So with that, we appreciate that, Eden, and we'll get back to the other slide. And I think we're turning it over to Raheem at this point, I believe.
Yes, thank you, Doug. Thanks, Eden, for the walkthrough. A lot of information there. So we're going to talk a bit more about returning to soccer. Congratulations to the following organizations who have all received a low risk assessment score from the Canada Soccer Assessment Tool. And for anyone with a moderate to high score, you'll need to revisit the mitigation section of the planning tool to address areas where they need improvement. Organizations receiving a moderate to high score must go through the assessment tool again prior to returning to the pitch. Just a brief timeline of the phased-in approach. So, on March 13th, we had the suspension of all activity. The announcement for phase 1, so outdoor return to contactless training, was June 10th. Further details were provided, bringing about minimal contact training on June 22nd, and then today, we had even more information, which provides a platform to move into phase 3. As we start to talk more about returning to soccer, it's important to just remember that there still are the 6 steps for resuming soccer. We've got ourselves to stage 4 or step 4, And this is where, for member organizations that haven't yet received a low or very low score in the soccer assessment tool, you need to revisit that. And for those that haven't completed it yet, you need to complete it before you can then move on through the stages. Government guidelines were actually updated today. We first got notice of it in and around the press conference at around 2:30. So the document itself has quite a bit of information, and specifically, I believe, starting at page 77. It is each organization's responsibility to maintain awareness of the government guidelines and any changes within them. They do frequently update that document, so please continue to revisit it, keep on top of the different communications that are coming out from the provincial government, because things are moving quick and fast. You can also utilize our Return to Soccer plan. The document is dynamic, so we're updating it as new information comes available. You know, in addition to this document, we also have a series of other resources that are available for each organization to use and utilize as they, you know, plan their return to the field. Obviously, you know, with today's announcements, we'll continue to work on updating it with some further changes. So based on the information at hand, and as Doug alluded to earlier on this phone call, there's a SASPORT meeting tomorrow. There are additional clarifications that we may need around some of the language that's within the guidelines. But from our understanding, we're looking at phase 3, a return to play, increased contact. I just want to reaffirm again the importance of moving at the speed, and I think Lisa had this in her message, moving at the speed your organization is ready to move at. And so just because we are somewhere doesn't mean that we can't start at, for example, phase 1 or phase 2, depending on the capacity, depending on how organized and well set up your organization is to handle some of the different logistical challenges, for example, that, you know, a phase 2 or phase 3 may bring. So we'll dive into this a bit further, but some of the key components is this idea of being within community. So in very many ways, like within your club, you know, the social distancing measures to a certain extent have been relaxed a bit further than they have been previously. And this is also contingent on the notion of a 50-person limitation. So based on the information today, tournaments, intra-provincial competition, and drop-in programs are not permitted. Soccer is a sport where physical distancing cannot be adhered to, and therefore, what they're referring to as mini leagues, which we look at more as groups, can be formed comprising of no more than 50 individuals. 50 individuals also includes coaches and staff, instructors, and participants from within this mini league or group, as well as any other individuals who are unable to maintain physical distancing. Parents and spectators who can meet physical distancing are not included in the 50-person individual limit. No single group on field shall exceed the gathering limits in the public health order. And mini leagues and groups must be comprised of individuals within the same neighborhood, community, or local geographical region, and for, you know, rural areas, potentially a rural municipality, town, or quadrant of a city or nearest community. In addition, mini leagues and groups should remain together until restrictions are further relaxed. So effectively, if you had a group of 50, and let's just say, hypothetically, everybody on this call is a part of our group of 50, and there are 50 people on this call, we would not individually be able to go out and jump in and play in another group of 50, for example. We would have to remain together as a group of 50 until those restrictions are further relaxed. Gameplay can resume between teams in a mini league, and must be limited to teams within the same mini league. So effectively, you're really staying within your group. You're not having players jump in from one group to a different group of 50. That's not what they're looking for here. Players and teams from different mini leagues and groups should not play each other. 2-meter physical distancing shall be maintained when off the field of play. So that is, spectators on the sideline need to adhere to physical distancing. If there is an environment where there may be, an element of a game, if there are players that are not a part of that game, then they should be adhering to 2-meter physical distancing. Under no circumstances should there be spitting, sharing of personal items, congratulatory gestures such as a handshake or a high five that should be taking place at this time. And ultimately, consider adapting activities to reduce physical contact whenever possible. So, a very brief example for individuals that are a bit more technical related on the call, a 1v1 activity may involve a great deal of physical contact because it's two individuals all trying to, in essence, fight for the same ball, comparatively to, let's say, maybe something a bit more possession based where you have 3 or 4 people that are working to some goal or objective and being defended by one person, right? So in the second activity, there's just going to be a lot less physical contact. And that's just sort of adhering to like trying to maintain that whenever possible. Intentional contact during sport or activity must be limited. Modifications that limit physical contact are recommended. So again, this is information that we've taken straight out of the government guidelines. This last sentence here, obviously, is something that we would want to seek a bit more clarification from. Just some general food for thought. So within a group of 50, including coaches and others, a variety of activities can take place. So, as I said, like you can structure your groups, you can structure your timings and your sessions and your time slots to really in a few different ways to maximize engagement and fun for the athlete. And I think this still rings very true, which is individuals from the same household and extended bubble family will benefit from being kept together still. So, in a situation where you have a few kids from the same family, they may have interacted with a couple of other families in their extended bubble family, bringing that group in together, those kids are going to be interacting both on and off the pitch. And so we still need to proceed with an abundance of caution because we are not through COVID-19 yet, but we have done an incredibly good job to put us in this position where the government feels strongly enough that restrictions can start to be relaxed. So, all previous health and precautionary measures are still in place. So things like sanitization and congestion points when coming to and from a field, all of that information and all those mitigation opportunities and factors still ring very true even now. And again, just because phase 3 is a possibility doesn't mean that you as an organization need to be there. If you feel comfortable with phase 1, because that's what that's what some may be comfortable with in your locale, and again, there may be people that do want the phase 3 aspect in a bit more return to like interaction with other kids and in a closer proximity. There will still be groups and individuals and parents out there that will want to be on the conscientious and cautious side. So it may mean providing some different alternatives within programming. Again, very important, keep in mind that if there is a COVID transmission within your organization, the notion of suspending activities for a 2-week period is still going to hold. So as we said earlier, we're going to be looking for some more information and clarity to make sure we engage the business response team and ensure alignment. I believe Doug will reiterate some information around when potential communication from us to membership will be received a bit later on the call. In terms of coaching certification, at this moment in time, Canada Soccer has communicated with us that no in-person coaching education courses will be held, meaning that if you have a coach that is going through a Learn to Train and has signed up for the online Google Classroom and has completed the coursework, they will be considered okay to be on the field while this pandemic is still ongoing. However, if, for example, they complete the Learn to Train in 2021, or assuming that in 2021 we begin to hold in-person courses, that's when they would need to complete the in-person on-field component. all additional requirements are still in place. The safety and welfare of the athlete is still the primary focus. And so respect in sport activity leader, making sure they have their CPIC. And then one other bit of information is for making ethical decisions, because this is sometimes a challenge for organizations, you can contact Dave Robertson, who's the executive director from the Coaches Association of Saskatchewan, to set up online private classes for making ethical decisions. His information can be found on the coaches, the SAS Coach website. And the way it works is that you can have a max of 12 participants, and it's a flat cost of $350. So that works out to less than $30 per participant. And I believe that's their average. If you go through the NCCP website, I think it may be $85. If you did it through SAS Coach and you just had your coaches sign up for one of the courses they hold, it's $50 per participant. So as an organization, you can set this up. It's just a flat cost of $350, and this is a MAP eligible expense. And then as we start to wrap up, before we get to some questions, as announced by Canada Soccer earlier today, they made the difficult decision to cancel Club Nationals in 2020. This is obviously a decision they did not take lightly, and I know that there was a great deal of thought involved in the decision, but for 2020, there will be no Club Nationals. In terms of provincial competitions, we believe that, similar to our previous statements, this is still very unlikely, but we will follow up with the formal communication when we have more information to share. So with that, I think we would like to have as many questions as possible tonight. We're going to work to record all of these questions. Obviously, this webinar is being recorded as well. It'll help us to piece together information in an FAQ, and also seek out further information that we're able to potentially ask, for example, from the business response team and the individual that's been helping us from the business response team. So you can either raise your hand or you can pop some questions in the chat. So any questions to start with? Mr.
Yes.
Morris.
Yes, sir. Now, as you know, we are very, very diligent in this and very careful on what we do going forward, Raheem. We have two questions. One is the opportunities now for players playing or training with their club. We'll use SEO as an example, but then having a player then go to an academy as well. Now, where my mind is going here, we are diligently trying to keep groups within the groups and not being exposed to other situations that could involve the getting of that virus. Where do we stand on that, Raheem? That's one question.
I'm not sure if I remember reading the government guidelines and if they had specified anything about sort of staying in one sport cohort or multi-sport. I know Alberta has, or the government of Alberta has provided some information around use and sport return, but I think that's probably one of the things that we can get back to everybody on and just make sure that our information is accurate. So we've noted the question and we'll provide a response to that, Hugh.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, because we'll use this as an example. SUSC player training with our camp and then goes to Astra or Whitecaps, gets exposed from that side. But I just want to do that. What we do, we are within our legalities. And the other one would be, I think I've read this right, Regime. We would prefer to keep our players within the organization for now anyway, that they are structured to play into, right? We have this situation where for PSL, we've amalgamated clubs, right? And do we now let those players go to the other clubs and train with them, or do they stay in our club now until the PSL resumes in a normal way? That's another question I had. Just making sure that what we do at SUSC is the correct way.
No, I appreciate the question. So I've actually gone back a few slides. So the first thing is individuals should remain within their within the same neighborhood, community, or local geographical region. So in this case, that would be within, I would say, for the purposes of players playing with or sharing of players, for example, within the PSL, and that if they're training in a bubble of 50 players that are a part of SUSE, then I can see some potential challenges there. However,
Yes.
again, I think this is similar to the first question with regards to Astra, and
Yes,
that's
sir.
something that we would want to get additional clarification on,
Thank
or
you.
provide additional clarification on. And then obviously, secondly, with provincial competitions and PSL being a provincial competition, at this moment, without tournament, interprovincial competitions being, sort of allowed, it's unlikely, just based on, we still don't know where how long we're going to be in the different phases, and before we know it, the summer could be over. So while we feel like these provincial competitions are unlikely, we'll follow up with the formal communication specifically to competitions such as the PSL as well.
Well, thank you very much for answering those. And I did not mean to single out Astra in any shape, way, or form. It was just used as an example, okay?
No, I appreciate that, Hugh.
Thank you.
Linda, you put a question into the chat. Thank you for that. Is there any requirement for any signage being present describing symptoms, importance of not attending if all symptoms are evident? Eden and Nicole, you may be able to speak to this, but my understanding is, yes, there does need to be signage. There needs to be signage at facilities to with preventative measures and warnings, so to speak. Eden or Nicole, anything to add to that?
Yeah, Raheem, I just read it here, but I'm trying to find it within the guidelines. There is a mention in the guidelines about signage, and I'm just trying to find it just right now. So give me a second.
Have it here, Doug.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll copy and paste it into the chat what it says, but in the updated government guidelines, it says that signage is required, and it says what type of signage there should be as well. So I'll
And what page, Nicole?
It is on page 83.
83, okay.
It's under facilities, so it might be a facility issue. You might want to check with your facility operator before getting signage made. They might already have it done.
There is a reference under the outdoor sports stuff, Nicole, as well. And again, I just haven't found it just yet.
Oh, okay.
Well, in the meantime, we can take another question while Nicole puts that into the chat and Doug looks for the page and information. So again, Linda, thank you for the question, and we'll make sure that either Nicole's putting something in the chat or Doug's following up as well. Hugh Morris, your hand is still raised. Do you have another question? Thank you. Any other questions that we can help you with at this moment?
There's another question in the chat.
Okay.
It's private, sorry. So now that each organization will be using sanitizer to clean equipment after each camp or practice, are these sanitizers and equipment used to sanitize going to be MAP grant eligible? Yes, that would be a MAP grant eligible expense. You probably don't have it approved on your original application, so you just need to send me an email and we can get it added on there for you.
Thank you, Nicole. Any other questions in the chat, Nicole?
Raheem, I haven't found that reference in the signage. So again, if we don't have that tonight, that's something we'll make sure we clarify in the communication, our next communication, okay?
Any other questions about some of the information that was obviously released today, or anything with regards to organization plans, that you've put together. Yes, Mike Jakubik in Yorkton.
Just wondering what the requirements are or restrictions are in terms of like regional programming, because Yorkton's kind of a regional club and I draw within, you know, like 100 kilometers of Yorkton. What restrictions do I see with that?
So I've put it back on the screen. The only information that we were provided with regards to that was mini leagues or groups must be comprised of individuals within the same neighborhood, community, or local geographical region. For example, a rural municipality. So I'm not sure if that helps, but we can definitely try and find out more information specific to that.
Yeah.
Raheem,
Yes, Doug?
Doug, I spoke to Saskport today, and this is a question they've had as well from other communities. And so they did not have clarity on that issue either. They were specifically speaking about PA and Melfort, for example. There's only one team and one age group in an area. The only other team that's near them is in, you know, from distance from PA to Melfort, and is that possible? And so I spoke to Saskport about 4:30 today, and they didn't have an answer for that question. So that's definitely one we will try to provide some clarity on to you, Mike.
Thank you.
And just for those who have known Mike for many years as part of the soccer community, he is now a father. So congratulations, Mike, to you and the wife on the birth of your first child.
Thank you again.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Mike.
Any other questions at this moment in time? Anything in the chat, Nicole?
Nothing in the chat.
Okay. Doug?
I was just wondering how many people on the call have actually read the latest update that we got again about 3 o'clock this afternoon, and what do they see as the contradictory statements within that information? And of course, anybody can comment or put something in the chat. There's more communication, for example, about droplet transmission, and it's really stressing that outdoor physical activity is going to be more of a risk when people are obviously breathing heavily and coming in close contact. So it's interesting the government has put some of those types of things in, which weren't in previous versions. They also have gone to the steps, Raheem, of providing more information on how the virus enters the body and re-emphasizing enters through the eyes, nose, or mouth, and obviously re-emphasizing regular hygiene, hand cleaning, and all those things. So these are some of the things we're observing. Obviously, we're moving as fast as we can on this, and after having spoken to Saskport, I think they have obviously as many questions as we do, and we will collectively tomorrow morning on the Saskport call, we're going to try to get at some of these contradictions and probably try to work together to get a good solid response from the business response team in a quick fashion. So again, comments from anybody who's read the plan and any comments about the contradictions you might see, or just the questions or concerns that pop up in your mind based on what you've seen since this afternoon. So I found the note, Raheem, and I couldn't find it because I was looking in the wrong place. It's almost right at the start of the document on page 77. Guidelines for general operation. Signage must be posted to caution players about the risks of COVID-19. So that is in regard to signage. It's not more specific than that. I can't remember who asked the question, Raheem. I apologize.
Linda from Kindersley.
Sure from Linda? Right.
At Kindersley Soccer.
So I'm not sure, Linda, if that helps you. Signage must be posted to caution players about the risks of COVID-19.
Doug, if I could add to that as well, Linda, we do have some resources available of different type of COVID posters that the government has released, and also a couple other provincial organizations have been using, if you would like to check them out for some resources.
Thank you, Eden.
Doug, in terms of communication from us with further information,
Yeah.
when
Guys, I'll just be straight up on this with you. Tomorrow, we have a board meeting, we have a SAS Sport meeting, and I think we're potentially going to try to speed up our communication, but I think we will probably stick with the Friday unless we get information from the business response team earlier. So I think we'll bring our communication up as quickly as we can, but I think we will wait until further questions are answered in some of these contradictions. So obviously we would love to have those questions from you folks. If you have any more, once you look at the plan, please send them our way. Send them to Nicole as quickly as you can. And obviously I think there's a lot of sports on the call with SAS Sport tomorrow. So collectively, hopefully we'll develop sort of all the questions that we want answered and be able to quickly get response from the business response team and then get that communication out. So is that satisfactory, Nicole? Is that okay from your perspective?
Yep, perfect.
So as quickly as we can, but we would like to give some time for the business response team to get back to us.
Thank you, Doug.
Yeah, you're welcome. Is there anything else there that we need to go into? Yeah. So let's get into this next call. So we're trying to wonder if we're going to continue to meet with you folks, and we're glad to do it if you're available. Obviously, we're going into staff holiday times and etc. in the coming weeks, but the next call would be tentatively set for July 7th. Of course, we have no way of knowing what would happen in between. But Nicole, do you want to talk about this poll? How do you want to handle that?
Yeah, the poll feature is actually not working right now. So if everyone just wanted to drop a yes, no, or maybe in the public chat box, that would be perfect.
Okay, we'll just give a few minutes for that, Nicole. So the question is, do you see value in continuing these bi-weekly calls?
Doug, it seems the overwhelming response is yes. So do we want to lock
Great.
in July 7th?
Yeah, at this point, until further notice, we'll continue with the bi-weeklies. It could be a point in the summer, we'll ask the question again. But until further notice, we'll continue as we have been every 2 weeks, and obviously earlier if it's necessary. And we'll do that regardless of who's on staff. We should be able to manage that. And we coordinate our holidays accordingly. But you never know when the announcements come. So some of us may not be available all the time, but usually with the rest of the crew, we'll be able to give people proper updates. So thanks for that response to that poll, and we'll look forward to continuing these calls then. So I'm just going to give everybody a second in case they have any items they want to add back into the chat for a question, or if anybody wants to raise their hand. Otherwise, I'll check with the staff. Is there anything else that we've missed? Nicole, Eden, Rahim, anything from you guys? Oh, Sean Riggs has a hand up. Go ahead, Sean. You're muted right now. There you go.
Okay, so I was kind of cutting in and out, so sorry if this was already answered, but in terms of the leagues up to 50 people, when could a zone actually start, something like that? And how many, what would the structure be? Would it be up to 7v7, 5v5? What's going on with that exactly?
In terms of
Team,
structure,
you want
Sean,
to take that one?
sure. In terms of structure, that is ultimately your organization's call because it's going to stay internal to your organization.
Yeah.
I would say wait until our next communication, and we can reiterate which phase organizations are able to move up towards. But at this moment in time, we're seeing it as phase 3, which is sort of internal to your organization in those groups of 50, inclusive of coaches. So unless there's anything that comes back from the business response team that may contradict that, that's sort of where I believe we're headed. But just look out for that communication on Friday.
So there's something coming out on Friday.
We'll be communicating what we find from the business response team just to ensure that we're aligned and we're not misunderstanding or misreading their message.
Okay. And then we're supposed to wait till the next discussion, which is July 7th, is it?
Then our next discussion will be July 7th, but on Friday, for example, if we don't find anything contradictory in our communications with the business response team, once organizations are able to return to the field, they can do so in those groups of 50.
Okay. So
obviously, all the players-
So as of right now,
Sorry,
we at groups of 30 or groups of 50 for maximum starting July 5th or 6th?
Like I said, I would wait until the Friday communication, and then based on that, we would either be at 50 or 30.
Okay, thanks.
No problem.
I just want to add too, it's important that all member organizations go on to the Re-Open Saskatchewan Plan on the government's website. Raheem covered a lot of it, but their guidelines today went from 2 pages to 4 pages. So there's some things in there that are your organization's responsibility that we might have not covered tonight. So if you go on our website under COVID and then resources, we have a link to the plan there as well.
Thank you, Nicole.
Amanda, you have a question in the chat. As long as groups of players are consistent, may a coach be involved with more than one group? And would this be considered low risk? It's something that we're asking more information on, and we can provide that in our next communication, because it's definitely one of the questions of how specific do the groups need to be, and are people able to travel between the groups? So thank you for the question, and it's noted, and we'll make sure that we respond to that.
And I'll just jump in on a little bit more on relation to that question, Raheem. Obviously, the question about low risk depends on the behavior of that specific coach. So coaches who maintain physical distancing, who maintain their hygiene practices, who maintain no contact with potentially exposed equipment, and who wear masks are obviously probably in a far better position than a coach who may not do all of those things. So those things are really adhering to all the guidelines reduces the risk on that. And I think there may be some tendency to suggest that coaches could, if they follow those proper practices, could be involved in more than one group. But it's premature to comment, to confirm any of that. So that is definitely a question that I will take more to the SASPort meeting tomorrow and get some direction on, and then as to the business response team as we need. So I think that's it on that one, Raheem.
Perfect, Doug. Thank you. Hugh Morris, your hand is raised.
Yeah, thanks, Raheem. Yeah, I'd like to support that with Amanda to that question, Doug, because as a technical director, we have so many qualified, certified coaches, obviously. Yeah. And if we have changing, it's going to be a little bit crazy if we have to have a new coach with every group. But I agree with you. All our coaches will be meeting those requirements. And also they are taking 6 online certifications that some will have a certificate with them, being aware of COVID-19, Doug and Raheem. But thank you.
So just to play the devil on it, that's a great answer. Thank you. And comment to you, sorry. But to play the devil on it, of course, remember that if coaches are going to multiple groups but not following all the general guidelines, then the coaches may be the person that shuts down your program the fastest. So definitely emphasizing that they have to be top notch when it comes to following all the guidelines.
100%, Doug. Thank you. 100%.
Yeah.
Eden and Nicole, before we wrap up, anything from either of you?
I'm good.
Eden?
I'm good. Thanks, Regan.
I just want to make mention of the coach education series that we're running with Sports Medicine and Science Council. We have another workshop tomorrow evening. The intent behind these workshops isn't about the X's and O's, but it's about supporting everyone and your organization's coaches to become better coaches and better people. And so the last workshop on coach wellness was just very informative. And we have another one on understanding sleep and performance, which I think is something that we probably all face as challenges at certain periods of time. And with those of you who are volunteers and also have a full-time job, it's these workshops and webinars are recorded, but obviously being there for the live versions of them allow for you to ask questions that may make an impact in your life. And then we also have a couple of other coaching workshops coming up, with one of them being on Monday, which will be led by the head coach of the University of Saskatchewan Women's Huskies soccer program, Jerson, who I believe is on the call. So if you would like to know a little bit more about youth sports programs and some comparison across some of the top youth sports programs, Jerson's going to be providing a great deal of insight on that webinar on Monday. And before, Doug, I turn it back over to you, TJ has asked a question regarding a 7v7 league for adults. So TJ, based on our understanding of all the information at hand, they would, in theory, you could potentially have 4 teams of 7, so to speak, or 4 teams within your group that can continue to just interact with each other. That would meet the 50-person requirement and criteria that has been laid out.
Okay, thanks, Maureen.
No problem. It was something that, we had definitely, thought of and discussed earlier, and it's potentially one of the reasons why, however many weeks ago that we were starting to put all these different phases together, we felt it was just a very, 50 would be a number that would probably become relevant at some point in time, and what is the formats of games, and how simplistic would they be to meet that 50-person total. So if you have any other questions about that later on, don't hesitate to reach out.
Thanks, Reem.
Doug, over to you.
Okay, well, just again, I want to thank everybody for being on the call. I want to also, again, personally congratulate all the member organizations that have gone through the assessment and have done all this heavy lifting to get ready to return to play. Also, offer our support to any groups that are still considering that. And a lot of work going on. I hope what you're seeing is that the return to soccer plan that Saskatchewan's developed and Canada has, other provinces have developed, I think it's been thoughtful, and it's allowing us to move through these phases and be prepared for these phases, even though we have no idea when they're coming, and we still obviously have some contradictory information and things we have some clarity on. The message is always to proceed at the pace that you're ready for. I would always encourage you to start in a phase prior to what's offered so that you can test out your protocols and get everything running in order. Because ultimately, the decision to return is up to you folks, and you want to make sure that you're doing the best you can for your association and, of course, all your participants. So it's an exciting day, a very interesting day again, with all the information that's come our way from Canada Soccer on the cancellation of nationals. And so we appreciate your patience. We'll get you the information as quickly as we can. I'll invite Lisa, if you're still available. Lisa, if you want to say a few words before we head out, and then we'll just wind this up.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. So this is exciting, and we'll wait until Friday till we get further clarification, but I think everybody will continue planning and getting their registration processes completed. So thanks everybody again for joining us tonight, and we'll stay tuned for more information.
Thank you, Lisa. And again, we appreciate everybody being on the call. I want to publicly acknowledge the staff for entirely redesigning this session tonight, and we will get to work again first thing in the morning, work with our colleagues at SaskSport to get you more answers. But please send us your questions. Again, if one of you is thinking of it, it's probably a concern for multiple organizations. So we do appreciate you sending us our questions. We'll do our best to get our answers for you as fast as we can. With that, I think we are concluded, and thanks everybody. Good luck out on the pitch if you're ready to get out there. So thanks.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, Raheem. Thanks, Doug. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks everyone.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thanks.
Thanks.